Good morning, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Grandpa's sitting here in the living room. Jack's speech. Today we're going to look at Matthew chapter 13. Jesus is going to tell some parables, and these parable comes from a Greek. It's two Greek words put together, and it kind of means like rolling a ball next to something, like juxtaposing. Comparing something, and you'll see what I mean as I get into these. They're they're going to start off as farming references, and a lot of the people in this area were farmers. We saw that some of the disciples are taken from the fishing industry, but there were a ton of farmers there. We saw Jesus in this one area, Gadara, where he cast out demons from this guy, and the demons went into a herd of pigs, and then the people of the town came out and said, "Oh, you need to get out of here because, you know, we can't raise swine if you keep letting demons get inside of them and kill them." So this is going to be agriculture, not herding or anything, but they understood all this stuff. It was the current culture. And then he's going to go from planting things like grains to talk about yeast. And the people would know that, okay, this is the end product of this. You grow these things, and then you're going to bake them into bread, and you use yeast. Usually you use yeast. Although we'll see in the book of Exodus that Jewish people don't always use yeast. So let's get started. On that day, Jesus went out of the house. He sat by the lake, and that's the Lake of Tiberias, the Lake Gennesaret, Sea of Galilee. I think there might be one more name. It's shaped like a harp, so I think it's Gennesaret. Means harp. Such a large crowd gathered around him that he got into a boat to sit while the whole crowd stood on the shore. He told them many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path." So this guy's like taking seeds, and he's throwing them out into the field so that they'll grow into wheat. And the birds came and devoured them. So on the path, it's like stones on the path or packed down dirt, and it can't get roots. So the birds go like, "Oh, look at these seeds sitting there. I'm gonna eat them." Other seeds fell on rocky ground. So this is in a path, but it's ground that's not tilled, that the soil's not prepared, where they did not have much soil. They sprang up quickly because the soil was not deep. But when the sun came out, they were scorched, and because they did not have sufficient root, they withered. Other seeds fell among the thorns, and they grew up and choked them. But other seeds fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100 times as much, some 60, and some 30. And that's the way that it is in your life. You may be somebody that if the seeds are planted in you and you're rocky ground, or even worse, you're the path. Seeds are not going to take root, or they're not going to maintain that root. And so you won't grow. But even the ones of you that are good soil, how much do you want to grow? Do you want to grow 100 times? 60 or 30? Like, you might be satisfied with, I'm leading a pretty good life. I'm a 30% growth person. But there are people who just go like, oh, I want this. I want this. Whatever the seed is that's planted in you, I want this. And then he says, the one who has ears had better listen. And he started this parable off by saying, listen. Now he's finishing up by saying, you better listen. You better do it. Then the disciples came to him and said, why do you speak to them in parables? He replied, you have been given the opportunity to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but they have not. For whoever has will be given more and will have an abundance, but whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. For this reason, I speak to them in parables. And it sounds like Jesus is going, you're my guys, so I'm going to hook you up. They're not my guys, so I'm going to give them a life, an afterlife filled with torture and pain. But that's not the sentiment here. The sentiment here is that if you listen, these guys have all listened so much that they're with Jesus all the time. The people that he's talking to are coming out and going like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's a guy. There were tons of guys that went around kind of preaching in those days. The Pharisees were out there telling people what to do, and this is very similar to Socrates and the major cultures back then. People would go around and speak because there was no TV. There was essentially no writing, and by that I mean there was written Hebrew and written Greek at this point in time. There was written Latin for those who used the official language of the Roman Empire, but you had to hand copy stuff. So that was very expensive. You didn't have books of things, like collections of writing, unless you were wealthy, or you listened to somebody and then wrote it down yourself. So the word of mouth was the way that information was spread. And these people can listen too, and they can follow Jesus, but they're not. They're just coming and hearing him. For this reason I speak to them in parables. Although they see, they do not see, and although they hear, they do not hear, nor do they understand. And concerning them, the prophet of Isaiah is fulfilled that says, and this is from, I think, Isaiah 6, you will listen carefully, yet will never understand. You will look closely, yet will never comprehend. For the heart of this people has become dull, their hard of hearing, and they have shut their eyes so that they would not see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. And unfortunately, most of the people that you're going to run into every day are like that. They're listening carefully, but they're not listening to understand. They're listening to respond. They already know everything. You're not going to tell them anything. And so when they're listening carefully, they're not letting it soak in. They're not just listening for understanding. But your eyes are blessed because they see, your ears because they hear. For I tell you the truth, many prophets and righteous people long to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. And that's pretty amazing. The prophets in the Old Testament, they were looking forward to this, but they didn't see it. These guys are getting to sit and listen to God in the flesh. It's hard to understand. Most of the people in the world don't believe that that's even a thing, but it's a thing. So listen to the parable of the sower. So now he's going to explain it. When anyone hears the word about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches what was sown in his heart. This is the seed sown along the path. The seed sown on the rocky ground is the person who hears the word, and he immediately receives it with joy. But he has no root in himself and does not endure. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, immediately he falls away. The seed sown among the thorns is the person who hears the word, but worldly cares and the seductiveness of wealth choke the word. So this person's too busy on worldly things. Like, I gotta make money. I have to have the prettiest girlfriend. I have to have the nicest car. No, you gotta have Jesus. But they're not picking up on that. But as for the seed sown on good soil, this is the person who hears the word and understands. He bears fruit, yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Now let's look at another parable. He presented them with another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a person who sowed good seed, so we're back on seeds again, in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, an enemy came and sowed darnel among the wheat. So it's weeds. It's a seed that isn't going to produce something good. Among the wheat, and went away. When the plant sprouted and produced grain, then the darnel also appeared. So the slaves of the landowner came and said to him, Sir, did you sow good seed in your field? Then where did the darnel come from? And he said, An enemy has done this. So the slaves replied, Do you want us to go and gather it? But he said, No, since in gathering the darnel you may uproot the wheat along with it. Let both grow together until the harvest. At harvest time I will tell the reapers, First collect the darnel and tie it in bundles to be burned, but then gather the wheat into my barn. So we're talking, what happens if somebody does this in your life? They sow this weed in with the good that you've let take root in yourself. But it's hard to just rip it out of there. So you're going to have that growing next year, because trust me, the evil one is going to put that seed in there. And you're going to have to deal with it all the time. These stalks of wheat are not going to grow as well as they would if there was no weeds next to them. Let's look at the last of the seed parables, the agriculture parables. He gave them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that a man took and sowed in the field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, but when it has grown, it is the greatest garden plant and becomes a tree, so that the wild birds come and rest in its branches. And we're going to see these wild birds play into this. They're the agents of the evil one, of Satan. So now we go on to yeast. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed with 3 measures of flour until all the dough has risen. So just like the seed planted in you grows, you can take that yeast and mix it in with the dough produced from that wheat, and it will grow and grow and grow. So now let's look at the purpose of these parables. Jesus spoke all these things in parables to the crowds. He did not speak to them without a parable. This fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet. Now, he's not saying, Matthew's not saying that Jesus never talked to anybody without a parable. And he's not saying that he never spoke to the people that weren't disciples without using a parable, because we've seen him do it. He's talking about in these teachings. Anyway, here's this. I think this may be from 2 different places or 2 different prophets. I forget which ones. I will open my mouth in parables, and I will announce what has been hidden from the foundation of the world. Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples came to him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the darnel in the field." He answered, "The one who sowed the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the people of the kingdom. The poisonous weeds are the people of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. As the poisonous weeds are collected and burned with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather from his kingdom everything that causes sin, as well as all lawbreakers. They will throw them in the fiery furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. The one who has ears had better listen." Now he's going to go on to a different set of related parables, because these are all about the kingdom of heaven. But now he's going to say, okay, well, this is actually the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field that a person found and hid. Then, because of joy, he went and sold all that he had and bought that field. So, if you find the treasure, you sell everything. The treasure is the kingdom of heaven. You sell everything. You give up your life for that. The life that you used to have. I'm not saying you take your life. You give up the life that you had for this new life. It's very difficult. I've struggled with that. I became a Christian in 1996, and it's now 2023, so we're talking about 27 years later, and I still struggle with that. You will too. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls. When he found a pearl of great value, he went and sold everything he had and bought it. So it's very similar. You find it, you give up everything else for that. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was cast into the sea that caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, they pulled it ashore, sat down, and put the good fish in the containers and threw the bad fish away. It will be this way at the end of the age. Angels will come and separate the evil from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So you see a pattern here, kids? Have you understood all these things? They replied, yes. Well, we'll see. Then he said to them, therefore every expert in the law who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his treasure what is new and old. The whole thing. The whole cannoli. Now, when Jesus finished these parables, he moved on from there. Then he came to his hometown and began to teach the people in their synagogue. They were astonished and said, where did this man get such wisdom and miraculous powers? Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother named Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? So the James is, we're gonna see him in the book of Acts when we get there. He is a mainstay of the early church. He's one of the leaders of the early church. He writes a book of the Bible. Now the rest of these, we've seen Joseph, that's his father's name. So Jesus wasn't named after Joseph, but eventually one of them was. And there's a Simon Peter, but it's not the same guy. So the only one we're ever going to run into here is James. But everybody knew them. That's why it's mentioned. And that's like, well, we know his family. This guy didn't go to the right school. He's not with the right sect of the Pharisees. What's the deal with this guy? How do you get this knowledge? And aren't all his sisters here with us? So this is another thing. After Jesus was born, his parents had several other children. So he was raised in a family where there were other kids. He was the oldest. And I'm sure he was a little different than the rest of them. But just imagine that, being raised in a family with Jesus. James got it. I know his mother got it. I don't know if the other kids did. Don't know if his dad did. You just don't find out. There's some questions that won't be answered till you get to heaven. So where did he get all this? And so they took offense at him. They didn't go, this is amazing. This guy knows this. They went, we don't like it. And that's the way people are. See, these are the people that heard it, and they were the paved ground, the path. The seed just dies. Because that's what he's doing. He's planting those seeds. He's doing the things now that he talked about in these parables. He's sowing the seed, and they're not even the rocky ground where it at least springs up a little bit and then dies when the sun comes up. They're the paved road. Just city street. Throw it on there, nothing's going to grow. Just sits there and bakes in the sun. Dies before it grows. Doesn't even get a chance to live and die. It never becomes born. And they just shut him out. These were his people. They knew him. That's pretty sad. But Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and in his own house. And he did not do many miracles there because of their unbelief. Now, apparently he did some miracles, because it says he didn't do many. So I'm sure he did miracles for people who believed. If somebody came up and went, Lord, please heal me, I know you can do it, he's not going to go, yeah, but people don't like me here. They're shunning me here, so just waddle away, get out of my face, because he's not like that. He'll heal the one that comes to him. It's not a group effort, but it is, in a way, a group condemnation. You can get condemned in a group, being part of a group that just goes like, who is this guy? I don't want anything to do with him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Listen, next time we're going to look at the death of John the Baptist in Matthew 14. Until then, peace out.